Hello, Nai Z of planet Earth. My name is Zai Ni Ademus, and in this episode we're going to be going over the peak pathway for the Nai Z. Now, a peak pathway for any given mojo is all 8 powers being used as they were designed to be used for the greatest amount of productive harmony. As the Nai Z, we already talked about what your 4 conscious powers are, which are Nai, Z, Jai, V, but you also have 4 remaining powers that are unconscious. If you were to take those 4 remaining powers, rank them in the correct hierarchical order, and then place them just under your conscious powers, you would have what is called the consciousness ranking. The consciousness ranking is the ranking of powers based on how easy they are for you to access from your conscious mind. So as a Nai Z, you have Nai, Z, Jai, and V, but then in your unconscious you have Ni, which is the strongest and closest to the surface of your unconscious, so it's the next easiest for you to connect with in a conscious way. Although it is unconscious, it's still easier for you to reach through your conscious powers. Then you have Zai, which is going deeper still into the unconscious, and even deeper than that would be Ji, and then finally Vi. So that's the order of your consciousness peak pathway. Once again, Nai, Z, Jai, V, Ni, Zai, Ji, Vi. Now when you experience your peak pathway in real life, it's not going to have this technical step-by-step feel to it. It's going to be, actual organic real life, and it's going to feel a bit more like a ride in your psyche that you experience through your entire body and your entire being throughout your whole life and every activity you do. The beginning of your consciousness peak pathway is called the charging up phase, and this is basically your Nai. It's the power that's always there for you. It's always on. You never actually have to turn it on. It's always there doing what it does. It's the beginning of your story. Your Nai is already booted up and it's waiting for you to do something with that energy. We call this the charging up phase, giving you the energy to do what you need with your heroic storyline. Then you have the conscious accessing of Nai, which gives you major momentum. The conscious accessing of Z gives you minor momentum. Then you do something called crossing the divide, meaning you are going across to the other side of your psyche. So which on the other side, you are going to have your modulation powers starting with Jai and then V. So the Nai Z begin from a perspective of detached insight and conceptual envisioning. Then they direct system dynamics in order to implement their visions. Then they apply personal values through resonation and conviction, and with heroic effort, then they take this vision into a concrete form. When you get this far, then you're opening the portal into your unconscious, because Ni, which is the top power of your unconscious, responds to the special kind of V that you provide when you complete the conscious portion of your consciousness peak pathway. So when you go from Nai to Z to Jai to V, then it creates kind of a chain reaction that begins to awaken your unconscious. When that happens, you will feel a swelling of energy. It's similar to the rising of energy that you experience in the charge-up phase, but now you're feeling your unconscious being given over to you, interfacing with your conscious powers, boosting them up. So when you feel this boosting of energy, that's what we call the wave swell phase. And it comes from successfully doing your conscious powers in such a way that awakens your unconscious. When the unconscious awakens, then it tends to come with what we call the tidal wave. This is your unconscious Ni and Zai coming to you together as one, as a wave. They'll also come in personified form, which we'll talk about in forthcoming episodes. But as energy, the Ni brings in possibilities, sixth sense, imminent potentiality, and that combines with the clarity and lucidity, dispassion, situational logic that Zai brings. The tidal wave will come to you as like a being in your psyche and as a general sensation, but also as a reaction that your psyche is having to what you do consciously. As you do things consciously, then the Ni and Zai of your unconscious will react to this accordingly, as one sort of compound that we call the tidal wave. But these can also separate into distinct Ni and Zai. which you can then interact with, but it won't be as naturally differentiated as conscious powers are, which tend to be more differentiated and allows you to kind of be able to grab at them individually. So the Ni and Zai kind of come as a package deal, which you can then unpack into the individual Ni and Zai. Next is the coastal wave, which is, if you do the tidal wave portion correctly, then you're going to have energy that's coming from your unconscious Ji and Vi. This is a part of the natural flow of the unconscious. So if all of this goes well, then it'll take the energy back over. It'll take the energy back through your Ji and Vi to your native quadrant of Nai. From there, you'll be ready to start the cycle again, and this can be done if you peak properly. It's a bit like flexing a muscle or going to the gym, meaning afterward, you kind of just did a psychic workout, so you're going to have a refractory period. And so going through your peak pathway from Nai to Zi to Zhai to Vi to Ni to Zai to Ji to Vi, there'll be kind of a moment where you just like ran a marathon. But don't worry, because the refractory period is only temporary, and soon enough then you'll immediately begin to start building up energy in the charge-up phase, so you can begin the whole process once again. Now what's important to note is that all of your powers are interacting together all of the time, so it's actually a question of how you access them and how you understand what's going on. It's not going to be a strict Nai, Zi, Zhai, Vi, and so on and so forth as you do things. You're having all of your powers work simultaneously, and so there may be times when you suddenly need to maybe write a paper or make an announcement or do any kind of just like spot on the moment kind of thing where you don't necessarily do your peak pathway from source to superpolar. So you can technically go in any order. However, there are certain orders that make for the greatest gaining of energy to help you bring into any activity or maneuver that you want to do. So the two main peak pathway hierarchies are the conscious hierarchy, which we just talked about, Nai, Zi, Zhai, Vi, Ni, Zai, Ji, Vi. And if you do it in that order, then that's the order where it'll be easier to reach powers that are further away by basically building up energy to them. Because you brought momentum understanding into the whole process and then channeled them down to your further powers. However, the consciousness hierarchy is actually not the hierarchy that is of the most influence in your psyche. The most influence in your psyche is called the energetic hierarchy. The energetic hierarchy has to do with which channels take precedence in your psyche. Which channels and which corridors, which is different from which powers are most to least conscious. As a Nai Zi, your top energetic power is still Nai, but your second energetic power would actually be Ni, even though it's unconscious. It has nearly the same amount of influence in your psyche as Nai does. It's actually kind of equal, or at least it would be equal if it wasn't for the fact that as a Nai Zi for you, Nai happens to be conscious and Ni isn't. So naturally Nai takes the lead in this dance. So continuing on, your next energetic power would be Zi, because the logic-based channel is going to be the next important channel for you after the interpretive channel. So this means that the next energetic ranking after Zi is going to be Zai. It's the unconscious part of the logic-based channel, which is your second ranked channel. Then next for you is Zhai, and what will come after that is Ji, and next is your polar Vi, which will come after that, Vi. So as a Nai Zi, you can use all of your powers to do all kinds of different things, but you'll always be working with that consciousness hierarchy rank of how much you can directly access your powers from a conscious position. And you'll always be working with the energetic ranking of the amount of influence that each power has based on which channel it's a part of. So the range you could potentially have is incredible, but you're working with that design. And the more you're able to understand that design, then the more you're able to access all of your powers and be able to do all the kinds of incredible things that they can do once you know how they work. So know yourself, grow yourself, and save the world with your peak pathway. And the peak pathway is the main way that you're going to be able to know yourself, grow yourself, and get all the magic powers that you will need to save the world. I'll see you next time.